So, welcome to another ProfileTree podcast. And today we're going to talk about how audiences are changing online. So, a very interesting topic that we're going to dive deep into. I know we're going to talk about social, we're going to talk about maybe AI, maybe not AI, websites, of course, and content being created. So, we've seen some incredible changes over the last couple of years. I'm thinking of mobile first and Google dumping, looking at how a website performs on desktop and it's gone to mobile first. So that's a big thing even for us to think of when we're looking at websites. Is it mobile first? And what does it look like on a mobile? Then the content that people are consuming. I'm thinking of social media and how that's dramatically changed. And even TikTok is on fire if you're not on TikTok now. So again, Gabby, I'm not sure, have you any thoughts on that platform to start us off?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think one thing that even say outside of TikTok, but even just for other platforms, I think one big massive change there's been in audiences is that our attention span or at least is continuously decreasing. Like, I think I checked last year and it said 8.6 seconds was the estimate. But I even just double checked it today, and they're now referencing that or citing that we have an attention span of a goldfish, which is now 8 seconds. So I think that's where, when it comes to say like social media for businesses and content, it has to be quick, or you have to keep that in mind that if you want to get your product, say promotion across, a 30-second video is going to work far better than say a 2-minute long video with that.
Yeah, and just to sort of reiterate your point on the website side, you sort of mentioned there, Kieran, and again, it sort of leads into your point exactly. Gabby, attention spans. I mean, I'm probably one of the worst people in the world when it comes to attention spans, probably for the duration I spend on TikTok. But yeah, late social media, again, it's the same. I think the social media sometimes has a part to play in maybe why our attention spans are so, small nowadays, because obviously everything's short form content, and just leading in the websites, it's exactly the same sort of thing. Shorter attention spans, coming from a UX and UI background, myself, I'm starting to see, a change towards the way people are designing websites, even looking from the outside. But even personally, when I'm designing websites now, I have to think very carefully with things like clear call to actions. Don't make people have to think about, what they're clicking on. Used to be more long form call to actions were better. But now people, like, for example, if it's like a product, they just want to see buy now or buy here, something like that. Where maybe a while ago it would have been like check out our product now or something like that. So again, just think something so simple like that is changing. And again, it's the same. Again, Gabby, I'm sure you can reiterate as well with online. If you're putting any sort of links away on social media, it's clear, get them away quick, get them to where they need to go without, too much fluff.
Yeah, I think the biggest pitfall I've seen for some businesses when it comes to, say, either promoting their services or promoting products is, say, for example, if they have a call to action where it says, buy now, but they're linking maybe to their homepage, or they'll say contact us, and they're adding that rather than say contact us link, they're adding a different page link. So then all you're thinking of is that that's effectively adding extra steps for that customer to have to take to go through with, say, putting that purchase through. So then what you're doing is you're already, if you think you've captured their attention on social media, by that point, before they click that link, they're on the kind of mere seconds that are left, that there's a higher likelihood that if you haven't linked directly or made that kind of process as easy or as short as possible, that
Yeah.
yeah, you might get that click through to your website, but whether or not you get that, if you get that sale or not, comes down to
Yeah.
how maybe dedicated, or if you are offering maybe say something that they're looking for that they haven't found elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason we're talking about this today, of course, is at the end of the day, understanding how an audience works and things about a brand is how we're going to get more leads and sales. So for me, this is critical. One thing I seen, and it surprised me as well. I've seen stats and trends they're saying that there's less sharing. So people are sharing less on social media, but
Mm.
they're actually creating content. The people who used to share a lot or maybe have changed into being a creator and actually creating content, which again is a big thing. I remember back in the day, we'd always said 1% were creators, 9% were consumers and engagers, and 90% were lurkers or people who just read content but didn't engage. But I think those stats have totally changed in the last couple of years because definitely the content creators ballooned. So many people now are content creators, and then of course you've got the people who are engaging on content. But it's interesting to see shares are down. So don't be asking people to share my post anymore. That doesn't work.
Yeah, and I mean personally, I can sort of see that. Even using your social media nowadays, there's not a whole lot more. Unless somebody is asking for a share or something like that, or going out of their way. Yeah, I can definitely see that. And I'm sure, Gabby, when you're taking clients through things and stuff like that, they're maybe saying to you nowadays, like, oh, well, I don't share as much nowadays as I maybe used to. People are maybe being a bit more creative. And I know, Kieran, you sort of mentioned to start AI, and I know we've spoken a lot about AI, but with people being able to create content so easily nowadays, it maybe is easier to create their own content rather than share other people's.
Say even kids in schools now, that they've their goals, their career plans are to become YouTubers or creators. That's, I think, one thing that businesses have to think about, is that audiences now are less likely to share because they maybe want to see how they can make it for themselves. But I think in terms of why shares are down, I think part of it is as well, apart from, say, maybe fear and oversharing, I think with how some businesses change over time, I think there are some audiences, say, especially if they have in mind that they want to build their own presence, that they don't want to maybe affiliate themselves with a business straight away if they maybe don't know the background, or they don't know what other products and services and how that maybe appeals to their own audiences.
Again, just sort of, leading the way to that, because there is less people sharing things, there is less, I would guess, exposure on certain, industries and certain businesses and things like that, which sort of leads into my department when it comes to websites. If somebody is going to websites, there's probably less people coming from the likes of social media. Now, obviously, organic search SEO is still really, really important. It's still the main driver of traffic to websites. But if you're thinking of people coming from social media, there probably is less shares on, you say, a company is posting about their website, a new offer on their product and things like that. So at this moment in time, given where we are, especially, with the economy, people are maybe not spending as much money. When you think of websites, you need to make sure that what you're putting on the website, the way you're structuring the website, I've already mentioned call to actions, and even things like menu structure. I've looked at a few websites over the last couple of weeks, and the client has made the mistake where they have maybe 10 items on the menu, and then they hover over it and there's another 10 items. Back to the attention span, people don't have any longer than, what was it, 8 seconds, Gabby, you
Yeah.
said? 8 seconds. So people don't have any longer than 8 seconds to be, to looking through that sort of menu structure and things like that. And again, Kieran, you mentioned obviously sales, leads, things like that. It's the most important thing. It's what keeps the wheels turning. And if somebody's coming onto your website and they can't find what they're looking for, say for example it's a product, they can't find things like reviews, they can't see information about the product, or not even that they can't see it, they can't find it. It's navigating it. They will click off your website. Amazon release statistics all the time. If their website is like 0.5 seconds slower, for example, they'll lose millions and millions of sales. So something as small as that will lose sales. So never mind if you are having a website that's very complex. And we're also seeing, a lot more demand for authentic, photos, things like reviews from real companies, from real people. Obviously, we live in a world now where it's AI orientated, but we are starting to see a lot more demand for, real pictures. Popular pages like Meet the Team pages are starting to sort of come back in a little bit, whereas they would have been phased out because people sometimes don't like going on camera. But we would be, striving for people to, to get on their website themselves, show off that sort of personal effect, because people do, well, I find anyway with websites, especially, it might be a little bit different from social media, but I do find people like that sort of personal touch, especially if they're buying those sort of higher end products, and the ones that, they will be reading more into.
So visual first. So get the really good images, the
Yep.
videos, animations, and yeah, leave it that. And back to the trust and transparency of the brand. Show people who you are and that you're a real business, as opposed to a generic site
Yeah.
online.
And
Yeah.
I was just going to say as well, it's not always going to be the same for every business. If you compare somebody like a coffee shop business or a cafe or something like that, the what people are looking for on that website is going to be different for, say, somebody who's looking for a a £5,000 watch or medical, like health insurance, things like that. If you're looking for health insurance, for example, you're going to read into it in detail, which is even an even bigger point to why the way you structure content is important, because people want to know the key points. It's all about structure. It's all about clear. Whereas a coffee shop, it's a bit more simplified, but again, it's making sure if somebody's going on, if you sell food, get reviews in there. Like, again, make sure people can see your reviews, Google reviews as much as possible, show them off on your websites, because, every business is going to be slightly different, but the same principles definitely applies when you think of, the actual experience on websites and things like that. And it's the same across the board, I feel.
Yeah, I think there's two good points you had there. So like the even just like kind of come across, say from like, well, say even just in terms of website, and you were talking about, like having your products and everything accessible. I think when you look at your website, you have to think about what type of products you're selling, because I think now, even in terms of organic traffic, audiences are more likely to spend time, say for big ticket items, like you said, whether it was a car or say maybe an investment in say even just a service. I think there's a lot more time, because there is that hesitancy and a little bit of distrust now, because there's, and that's where the demand for authenticity comes in. But I think that audiences for big ticket items are now more likely to spend more time going to your website, maybe going to a competitor's website, going back and forth to see what you can offer them that's different. And I think for those types of websites, I think there needs to be much more of a focus on like reviews, insights, content, even say video demonstrations to show that the business is legitimate. Because even coming back to that authenticity that we look for now, I think this has had like a large impact on in terms of say how audiences operate in social media. And I think where it kind of really kind of peaked from was the pandemic, because so many businesses who maybe traditionally weren't online had to make that digital move. So it's increased the number of businesses that are out there, that audiences now have so much to choose from. But because there's so many of them now, and say even like little startup businesses, there is gonna create a bit of distrust initially. But if you can have, say, like behind the scenes content, like you said, Dylan, like meet the team posting in terms of social media, reviews, anything like that is just going to build that authenticity and start build that bridge of trust between you and that new potential customer.
I seen two points added, and I seen another case study last night that I've added into my little black book, but I thought was a brilliant one. Is homepages, e-commerce websites, they actually reduced the number of links and the places that people can go off a homepage, and they're able to increase sales of up to 50%. Because again, back to your point on the navigation, too many options on it. So again, just removing the options and funneling people where you want them to go, and hopefully where they want to go as well.
I think product oriented websites are definitely, I will always be recommending trying not to put too much on the homepage that takes them to too many different places. The more scattered the traffic is, I feel like, I think it's harder to sort of, grab that niche. If you're selling obviously a range of different products, it's a little bit different. But if you're trying to focus on say 10 to 20 products, don't have them going to, 10 different pages to view 2 products per page as such. Have it all in one place that it's easy to read, easy to navigate. Product websites. And again, I think with even thinking a little bit of SEO, e-commerce websites are doing better nowadays, I think, than, the likes of brochure websites, given AI and stuff. Bit of a bonus. I know, Kieran, you like your AI, so but yeah, we are seeing a sort of a shift from that as well. Again, if you are selling products, linking your products on social media is just as important, because obviously, Gabby, your department, there's a lot of audiences that's on social media that products are more orientated to compared to websites. People may not search for certain things online. They might search for it on social media. TikTok search is obviously very, very powerful in trying to find things. So I do think that products are, I'm not going to say the future as such, because they've always been there, but I do think that product websites are starting to sort of lead the race, especially on organic search at the minute.
I definitely think there's a big increase in social shopping, like say like TikTok shop, because and I think we're the benefit, I think, of having your website with your products and having say social shopping options is that you're in a way catering to two different sides of your audience. So those who maybe say, for example, I know going by, like, say, the demographic that my dad's in, my dad will not buy from a business until he can see a website, see it looks fully legitimate. Whereas I was one of those people that said I would never buy anything off TikTok shop, and I'm not ready to disclose how many orders now I've made on TikTok shop. But what it appeals to is the impulse buyers, the people, because it's so easy. It's a tap of a button, add your cart, click. If you're using, say, Apple Pay, click your phone button, and then that's the sale done. So I think there is benefit of having both. But I think if you're just kind of focusing on keeping your, like you said, Dylan, like keeping your products on your website, but not actually then actively promoting them, you're going to lose an opportunity there. But I think where another change has come that I've seen is that, and it's not something that I've overly noticed, but it's definitely something I've noticed as I've like looked into how audiences are changing, is that when it comes to promoting products or services, we don't like feeling that we're being sold to. So if you're constantly saying buy now, buy this, this is what, say it was promoting a product, we're less likely to engage with it. And even engagement is so difficult at the minute, but we're less likely to engage with it. Whereas, say, something I think TikTok did well is that a lot of businesses do there is they will get a user, or say their own team, to show, say, how the product works, show before and after. So then, because you can relate to it and see it working, you're more likely to go through with the sale then, rather than just looking at a branded graphic with a product on it.
Absolutely. And again, back to, I think I mentioned earlier on, reviews as well. Same sort of thing. People are not sold on perhaps the product description, the product page. Same if you're advertising the product on social media. They're sold on the fact that somebody is demonstrating how to use it, say it's that type of product, but also by looking at somebody's reviews of that product to say, oh, this is a really good product for X, for Y, so on and so forth. That sort of authentic content coming from real people who's using that product. I think everything obviously has a huge overlap. And I definitely agree. Things like even small, like, on websites, if you put like little small Trustpilot badges on like the reviews to indicate that they're coming from Trustpilot, link away to it. Trustpilot's obviously a very well-known website. People will, believe a Trustpilot review rather than just a static review on a website. And things like that do make the difference. And it's a difference in selling, say, a £5,000 product or a £5,000 service and not selling it.
To summarize, would you have a few pointers or checklists that we could share of action points that someone should consider then for some of the points we've discussed so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're in the world of websites and in terms of, kind of quick wins, if you like, call to actions, I think is one of the biggest points. I would say don't overcomplicate your call to actions. Also people always say put as many call to actions as you possibly can, especially in the homepage. Think of your homepage as a funnel page. You obviously want to link out to your product pages or your service pages, anything like that. So you definitely do want to reference content as much as you can and link away. But think of mobile. As you mentioned at the start, Kieran, we've sort of turned into a society where 80% roughly on most websites are on mobile. So when you're designing websites, make sure you're considering the fact that call to actions will take up a good bit of the screen. If there is, say, 10 call to actions within a very, very small period, it will just look like call to action after call to action after call to action on a mobile screen. It'll look fine on desktop, of course, massive screen. Things like menu structure. Rule of thumb for myself is don't go any more than 5 or 6 items on the menu bar. If you have a mega menu structure where you sort of have that drop down and you've got loads of different items in there, that's fine. But try, even if you can add icons to beside those items, just so it's easier for somebody to sort of grasp their eye over and see sort of straight away. So that first call to action, that first hero section, make sure it's going to the place that you want them to go. Don't fluff around and get them, going to your about page or anything like that. Get them going where you want them to go. If it's your product page or service pages.
Excellent. I was just having a quick little look there. I remember you reminded me of some old things. So back, I just going back to Facebook and our ProfileTree page back in the day. We grew our business initially on Facebook. It was absolutely amazing for us. Facebook was our number one channel, and social media was so hot. And then Google seemed to take over, and that's where the big money was in content and SEO. and then now it's happened again. So personally, I kind of lost a little bit of love with social media, burnt out, I think, after a couple of hard years on Facebook. So that's why I don't post as often as I used to. But back to the omni-channel, I guess, approach is trying to be everywhere, but which makes it hard for businesses as well. You know, it takes a lot of time to do that. We would always advise someone to pick one or two platforms and focus on them, become the master, and then branch out once you've done that. But it's never easy. But again, with social selling, it's very interesting. So social media, you can't, if you're selling products, you have to be on it. The AI thing and what it's doing now to content creation and back to trust. And I'm a big believer in the reviews as well. As you say, I don't think I would buy anything without checking reviews. So always like to see the yellow stars, and again, just reminding people all the time, like everyone, I don't know, would you buy anything without seeing the yellow stars or the reviews first?
I know. I was gonna say I've too much of my dad in my brain to do that. No, I will check reviews, and if I can't find reviews, I will be on Trustpilot. It's just
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, likewise. I bought like one of those fancy Oral-B toothbrushes like 3 or 4 months back, and the reviews I read before I actually bought it. For something like a toothbrush is a toothbrush, it does what it does what it says it does. But again, you know, something and that wasn't a very expensive product. I think when you lead into those more, you know, medical insurance, I think was the good example I used. If somebody is looking to commit to that service, obviously a lot of money, you're going to want to read into reviews. How good is the customer service? How good is it to get your money back and, you know, claim things like that? So absolutely, I think if anything, reviews is key.
And have you seen much of a push away from the traditional? So again, I 12 years in retail before the digital world and lived and breathed the shops. Have you seen much push, or would you both go and shop still, or is everything bought online?
It depends on I guess the products for one. Certain products are obviously very, very difficult to ship. Things like car parts, like anything that's, you know, industry sized. So I do think there's still a market for, if you like, the high street, the shops, like, you know, they still get into the shops. But I do think that no matter if you're reliant on, you know, people walking in through the door, I think that having your social medias up to date, absolutely, posting them regularly, and website. Social media is really, really important. It's obviously the first sort of interaction. But if somebody's clicking a link on the social media and goes to your website isn't up to par in comparison, you're going to lose that sale. So you've done, say, 50% of it right, but you haven't done the rest of it right. But I do think there's a mix. I think if you're, you know, if you're a sort of a shop, it's, you know, an actual high street shop, I do think that there's still a market for it. But I do think it's leaning towards the, you know, the older generation, just because, you know, personally, I would never go to shops. I used to go shopping on like Christmas Eve to get all the presents for the Christmas day. But nowadays it's as easy to do that online and do it on the 1st of December and it's all there for you. So I do think that convenience is a big thing. I think we're leaning to a word of convenience.
Where I would fully agree with convenience. Like I know myself, say in terms of Christmas shopping, I don't think apart from maybe going, Kieran, like you said, maybe going to a supermarket to get little bits and pieces, I think I've done my Christmas shopping online since even before COVID, probably. I really think there like you said, Dylan. I think it's if you're a shop looking to drive footfall, I think you need to incorporate social and e-commerce into it because if you don't, no matter what, you're limiting yourself to one side of your audience. But I definitely think it's why I even think TikTok shop has taken off because it's so convenient. Knowing who your audience is and incorporating that into, you know, say for example, even in terms of the platforms you use. So say if you were a business that has a storefront and an online presence, using say platforms like Facebook to drive the footfall to target your older demographic, whereas using platforms say like Instagram and TikTok to appeal to the convenience of that younger demographic.
So what's the best ways, do you think, then to know and understand your audience?
I think from a website point of view, I think, you know, you can look at things like Google Analytics, Google Search Console. It obviously gives you very in-depth details on things even such as like what device people are using. You know, it can sort of give you a range of demographic, the basic information. It can't go too detailed, but it does give you a lot of useful information. Even things like how long people are spending on certain pages. So that say for example you have 20 product pages and 90% of your users are spending it on one page. That would tell me and sort of spell out to me that that's the one page, that's the one product that's popular, that's the one you want to be putting at the forefront. So tools like that. I mean, we obviously live in an AI world. There is a lot of UX and UI tools that actually will analyze your website and they'll create something called a heat map. And that heat map, pretty much it'll review the full website, and anywhere it feels like is drawing the user's eyes, like sort of drawing their attention, it'll highlight those and kind of put like, sort of, think of a heat map. It'll be really red if it's somewhere that's popular, and obviously it'll be a bit smaller if it's not. So it gives you an idea as well to, if you design a website, to sort of reemphasize, is this the right way to design it? Is this, does this look the best? Is people going to be able to read this and see everything? So AI is obviously going to be coming into this massively. It's still a little bit light when it comes to design, like in terms of AI, but I think in the near future, if you're looking sort of towards the next 5 years, I do think that there will be a lot to analyze that, and the same with demographics. But yes, overall, I would say Google Analytics and sort of AI tools.
In terms of knowing your audience, that's why I would suggest having at least kind of a ballpark idea before you choose your platform, because the platform, although it's great to be on all of them, your platform is effectively going to dictate who you're marketing to. So say, for example, Facebook, which is known as, it's horrible to say, but it's called the old audience, but that's just anyone over the age of 25, because they find even people below 25 on Facebook spend an average of 22 minutes per day on it, whereas that older bracket spends more time. So if your product is aimed at over 25-year-olds, Facebook is where you would need to be. If you have a product that maybe can range over a different range of demographics,
Yeah.
then you could definitely go into, say, Instagram, TikTok, but where I like to always kind of point that out is that I know, that time is probably the biggest underestimated resource that any business has. That if you're putting so much time and content and resources into a platform that your audience isn't there, where you can say, look into the platform's insights itself to see what are your age, location, gender demographics of your audience, you're effectively spending, losing that time and those opportunities on a platform that you're not going to get a return on. But once you start to, fill your pages with the content, then, it's looking into those insights to see what are the age ranges and the, those different demographics and locations that you're looking for, because that can either highlight that you are targeting the right one, or highlight maybe gaps where, so say, for example, if you were a local business that can only supply to, say, people within, say, Northern Ireland, if you're getting a lot of social traffic from America, then that's not going to be an audience that you can obviously sell to. So how can you maybe tailor your content back to, focus more locally?
I think there's a lot of overlap here, and I think we've been able to sort of establish that from today. That, there's a lot of overlap from what you're going to do in social media to what you're going to do in the website. Demographics is exactly the same thing. I think the way you design a website, the way you even if you think of just general design aesthetics, things like if your target audience is definitely towards that older generation, you don't want to make all these fancy quirky bits and pieces throughout the website that's becomes hard to navigate. You have to click certain buttons to get certain places. You want it to be sort of metaphorically black and white, nice and easy to click through. So I do think there's a massive overlap between between what we would be doing on socials. I think it all has a part to play, and I think knowing your audience is important.
Incredible. Yeah, no, super interesting. Now, I'm going to ask about content, changing types of content, so long form, short form, especially videos, when we think of it, and the impact of that in what we're doing. So videos is definitely not going away. It seems to be the status quo. And then again, I know we're not mentioning AI in this one, but it's really interesting. I'm noticing as well how some websites are using AI to curate content and basically serve up tailored content to individuals' preferences. We have actually was checking, so we have Google Alerts scraping any mentions of our brand, but Google Alerts is brilliant. So the Google Alerts that I got today on our brand name, I found a site in it, ground.news, that has curated some of our latest articles on AI, and again, it's very interesting. They're using AI clearly to pull this together, and then they're referencing us. So it's great to see that the sites out there pulling our content, but really interesting to see what other people are doing around that
Yep.
and using the technology and the new tools. So back to when we're talking about content. So short form, long form video. What's your thoughts?
I definitely think short form is, although I say that with the fact, say with TikTok first, became really popular, at least that when I got sucked into it, where videos were 15 seconds long. Then they first extended to 6 minutes. And I remember at the time thinking, there's no way anyone's going to sit and watch a 6 minute long TikTok video, to a point that I was watching something. And at one point I was like, right, okay, I have to stick around now. I've got this for, I need to see what the ending is. And that's when I realized I had sat through my first kind of full 6 minute long video. But I definitely think you say the way our attention spans are going, although I think that that's not to say long form should be kind of eradicated, say, from someone's maybe video marketing strategy, because I know even in terms of myself during the day, I will look at micro content, so say 30-second videos. At night, that's when I'm more likely to spend time on YouTube watching 30-minute long videos, or say even longer than that. But where I see like the biggest opportunity for video style content for in terms of say businesses with sales is actual live streams, because it gives you the opportunity, like I was saying earlier, like gives you the opportunity to not only show, and probably is more aimed towards say people are selling product or businesses selling products, but it gives you an opportunity to show the product, show how it works, show the differences, but also build that rapport up with your potential customers by answering their questions in real time, showing that authenticity. And I've seen a lot of businesses, particularly on say like Instagram or TikTok Live, have done incredibly well. And where I see the kind of downfall for that for some businesses is that I think some businesses, whether they're small or they have an established team, if they don't feel comfortable or they're a little bit hesitant about going on, say, a live stream, that kind of cuts an opportunity there. But I definitely think in terms of video, or at least in terms of like sales for businesses, I would stick with the micro content.
I don't think long form content is gone. And you mentioned live streams, and it's quite interesting because my TikTok for you page has been sort of filled with live streams recently. And we've talked a lot about TikTok Shop, and the good thing is with live streams you can actually be talking about a product on a live stream, and at the bottom just beside the title, that product link will be right there. So you can actually change that as your sort of live stream, and the tools available in that is crazy. So not only are you live streaming, you can also put links to products you're talking about at that particular moment. You could do a 2-hour live stream and talk about 150 products that you're selling. So I think a mixture of long form, short form. I think, again, back to the attention spans things, short form, 100%. If you're targeting a younger audience, don't mess around and explain it in a 4-minute video. Explain it in 30 seconds. Get it out there and get it sort of said, whatever is important. And then it means you can kind of, you can lead on from that. But yeah, absolutely. I think it's a mix of both would be ideal.
Yeah, I think the appeal of TikTok Shop, and it's like you said, the fact that like I've been sucked in by businesses before where they're like, oh, the link's right there, and you think, well, if it's there, I may as well go look at it, kind of thing. But I think one thing that TikTok has done is, in a way, it's like created its own like QVC channel for younger demographics, where you'll see businesses will say for the next hour, this that usually is £50 is going to be marked down to 50%, buy it now. So it appeals to those urgency buyers, or people who feel like they're like think to themselves, well, if I don't buy it now, I'm gonna have to pay full price if I want it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I think definitely, I think that's where live streams also have that opportunity, because you can I think it's as well as you make people in that live stream feel in a way special, even though you're offering that offer to everyone, and you could be in a live stream with thousands of people, you still kind of feel like, oh, well, I got that because I was on their live stream, so I got that discount. So I definitely think you just making it easier, but appealing to that urgency as well works well, with that.
I was checking. So 1986, QVC started selling online, or sorry, well, on TV online, which is incredible. But to see what TikTok's done, so again, is it a missed opportunity for QVC? There could have been in that space and owned it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see Amazon are rolling in behind them again. What they're doing with creators, I actually was on Amazon the other day and I couldn't believe it. There was a creators page and they were advertising all these products that they liked, and you could purchase some through that page. Never mind the live videos as well on Amazon, and obviously they've got their creator reviews as well, where you get a commission through that. So it's interesting to see where commerce is going and how people can maybe sell to their audiences in different ways, and on these platforms where we're all saying that the audience is.
It's, they're more likely to make a sale, but where the additional benefit is for the business themselves is it cuts down the amount of content that they have to create because they're getting it directly from their customers. But then say if they said, tag us with our, custom hashtag, to be shared, and then if they're sharing their customers' content, that's then going to drive that customer to want to keep engaging with them or to maybe buy from them again. And even in terms of engagement, that's probably, I think, the hardest bit at the minute for businesses with their social media audiences is that we have become numb in a way to engaging with content. Even say, for example, last year, there even video saw a drop in engagement with carousel posts, say on Instagram, still had a bit of an increase. So it's even understanding how to get your audiences to engage. Because say, for example, platforms like Instagram, that the algorithm is driven by engagement. If your audience is engaging with their content, with your content, they're less likely to see your following posts after that. So it's just trying to build that, kind of consistent connection with them.
Yes, and I see TikTok Shop, so they're predicting sales of 17.3 billion this year in the US alone. So again,
Wow.
like, yeah, it's a monster. So again, if you're selling products that might appeal to that demographic, and I did just to compare, like we're talking about TikTok Shop, and you've got Amazon as well. So we think of TikTok Shop is impulse and through engagement, where Amazon, and it's impulse, yeah. So you see something you buy. Amazon, it's you go searching, so it's intent. You go to Amazon to look for something. You think of the audience, so it's younger Gen Z and millennials, and on Amazon you've got nearly everyone. The approach of the content. So again, TikTok is video first. Then you've got Amazon that's product led. So again, you got your product pages and how people interact. So TikTok, you've got live interaction, and you can ask questions and shout all you want. Whereas on Amazon, you've got no salesperson selling to you.
Yep.
So again, there's definitely interesting differences, but yet two platforms that I guess any business could be selling on. I'm thinking as well, you've got on TikTok, you've got viral potential and you've got social proof where people are engaging. Whereas Amazon, you've got the trust and reliability, and the logistics is going to be here tomorrow, and the quality control, and you don't really have that
Yep.
on TikTok.
Yeah.
Really, like it's amazing, very, very different platforms, but a lot of opportunities for businesses to sell if they're selling product.
Yeah, I was just going to mention as well, like obviously this all relates back to, you've mentioned TikTok Shop is more impulse and Amazon's more intent. It's the same rules for your website, depending on the type of product. It's all to do with the type of product you're selling. A good example, I guess, in TikTok, and I'm sure we've all seen it, is this Dubai chocolate, this fancy chocolate bar that costs an arm and a leg. I would be lying if I said I haven't bought 2 bars of it in the last 2 weeks. But as a side point, TikTok is perfect for that. Like if that was on Amazon on its own, without the hype and without that sort of gone viral sensation, nobody would buy it. Nobody's going to buy a £17 bar of chocolate without sort of seeing, and I think it's aesthetically pleasing because everybody's doing the videos and it's, showing the insides, whatever, that sort of thing. I think that's tailored to TikTok better than Amazon. So I think it is all oriented around what type of product do you have? What type of audience do you have? Pick the right platform and pick the right layout for a website to sort of sell that product. I think it's all going to have to be, it has to be tailored.
Any ideas on, take my product or service and sell it on TikTok? Do I need to do something special, or do I need to produce a lot of content, or do I need to get influencers? What's the best way to approach that?
I would definitely say my main thing is because they have our heightened trust issues now online is definitely that you first, before you even look into, say, advertising or selling through TikTok Shop or any other, or even through your website, is that to build that trust initially, you need to build up a good bank of consistent content on your pages. Because I know the first thing I'll ever do is if I get an ad for a business, I will go into their social channels to see how legitimate do they look active. But I think in terms of them building from that, once you've got that consistency, It's then about getting your audience to engage and then looking into then say other having whether it's an e-commerce shop on their website or using a platform say like TikTok and TikTok shop, and then incorporate ads into it. The only thing I would say is that you don't, it's just because again of our short attention spans, I think we also have a heightened level of getting frustrated with businesses, is that I would say don't over hammer it, test the waters a bit. Because I think even in terms of social media, in terms of creating that social strategy that's going to help you target your audience, it's not a make your Instagram a channel and you're going to go mad overnight. And because I think now, and I think it is because of say platforms like TikTok and even Instagram that a lot of businesses are looking for that viral moment that, they're going to have one post that's going to take them off and that's them set. You have to think about, building that up first, but, because that viral moment, even if it does happen, sometimes it can last. It's almost like that 15 minutes of fame, that viral opportunity can last until the next business goes viral. And then you haven't got the groundwork there to kind of build from what you've created from there.
Totally. The viral thing, 100%. And we'd always recommend people don't try and do the viral thing. Actually focus on selling the product that's going to work. We've had it. We've some of our videos on YouTube have went and got millions of views, and it's incredible. But what comes from that, and it's great people consume the content and get to know the brand. But what is the ROI from that? So no, it's a great point. So yeah, viral is great and nice, but it definitely feels like it's a little bit for vanity, maybe not so much the cash in the till, which is what we're all after. So again, coming back to you now, Dylan, I don't know if you have points or action points that we need to consider then when we're thinking of knowing our audience, and even getting to how we get our audience to buy from us.
Yeah, so again, reiterating on sort of using as many tools as you possibly can. Google Analytics I've already sort of mentioned, but I think, when you're sort of building a business, maybe from the start, you will be getting sales, you will have data of your own as such. It's not like you're going to be starting from zero. You will have at least something, or you'd like to. So what I would say is, for anybody who is starting to sell online, word of mouth is obviously very, very, influential. I think it's still massive. I think people are, back to reviews, real people talking about things. If a friend or a family member or any, a colleague, anybody like that comes up to you and they say, oh, go to this, check out this product, check out this service, you're going to go to that and have basically 100% faith in it, or at least 90%. So I think word of mouth is still very important, but that only gets you so far. It's the next step that's important. But that initial bit of data that you get off that word of mouth, say for example, it's a full younger audience that's been contacting you or ringing your phone off the hook, looking this product, looking this service. That gives you an idea. Okay, so at this minute in time, there's younger people that's looking at my product. So that gives you sort of an idea for what people are searching for.
So we better jump in and talk about predictions. So where are we going from here? So what do people need to be aware of from my side? And I'll stop talking for 2 seconds then. I'm thinking of course, couldn't get past without mentioning AI. So I see massive, and I know we're talking about it already. And we've got Rufus on Amazon, which is our AI Amazon helper when you open your mobile app. So I can imagine that most of our Christmas shopping this year is going to be done with the help of AI. And again, I've seen a stat that 95% of customer interactions by 2026, including real-time conversations, are going to be handled by AI. So we're all going to get used to AI, not the awful AIs that we're used to, or not the awful chatbots that we're used to from years ago, but obviously smart tools. And when we look at some of the case studies again, that the amount of time that can be saved, how quickly these can give us real answers as opposed to directing us to a new page. So I'm excited for that. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but I'd be super keen to hear what you both think.
Yeah, I think, again, I'm like you, Kieran. I'm excited for all the different tools that come out every other day. I think we live in a world now where we could talk about this every single week and talk about what's come out the previous week. That's the sort of the way we live. But if we're thinking, predictions for the future from some of the things we've talked about already, I mean, obviously website design, I think that it will become even more simplified. I think that even where we are now, I feel like websites are already very simple, but I think that will keep going, and eventually it'll probably be, a picture and 2 buttons and that's it. Like, I'm not saying it's that basic, but I do think that's sort of where we're leading. I think going towards as simplistic as possible. There is obviously rumors out there where AI may change websites, so the design of websites depending on the person who's on it, the buttons they click on. So if a website, for example, or an AI was able to pick up that you are looking at, say, product X in a certain circumstance, it may tailor that whole website around that product, a bit like the way your social media does, and obviously targeted ads and things like that.
I think in the world of social media, it's kind of hard to make predictions because it feels like these platforms and their algorithms are changing on a daily basis, and some of them are. In terms of how I think audiences are going to change, and just how even like the online presence for marketing for businesses is going to change. One side of it I think the businesses should take into consideration is almost taking a step back to kind of traditional marketing, like email market or including email marketing into what they're doing, because in a way it's all giving you that opportunity to target that maybe section or fragment of your audience who maybe isn't on social media and isn't very technical when, in terms of navigating through websites. So, directly kind of sending them offers or product information. But in terms of like the, social media itself, I think one thing I always recommend to businesses is that even if you're not a lover of the platform or if you're not very much of a personal user of it, because the algorithms change so often, it's worth spending some time on it because then if there's been a big change in it, so say for example, like Instagram's one that's been changing consistently probably through the past 6 months or so, that if you don't spend time on it, when you go back to use it, you're effectively going to feel like the rug's been pulled from under your feet because what you knew it as before has completely changed. But even in terms of some content trends that I've seen, I've seen some businesses and some social teams behind businesses have actually dropped brand consistency a bit to push more of a creative boundary. So say, for example, say if it was a product image, not having their logo and maybe website at the bottom of an image, but make it more so immersive or putting it in the environment that it would be used. Um, so I think that's one way. But even one question I get a lot from businesses in terms of maybe wanting to work with an influencer, but maybe not having the budget or maybe not being able to find the right influencer for them. One trend that I've seen increasingly kind of happen more and more, and I've seen a good kind of return on it, and I even was able to find a report on it, is that what you'll see an awful lot of now is brands, probably more so on platforms like TikTok or Instagram, maybe more so than Facebook, but it'll be brands that will go in and comment on a creator or a user's profile, say maybe they've mentioned a product or say they're looking for something, but they'll go in and put a comment in that post because then it's opening them up to that person's audience. But also if that creator maybe replies to their comment, it's seen to have over 1.6 times more engagement than for the business afterwards. So what I would say is, for moving forwards, like for businesses, is that pick your platform where you're at least your core audience is. Try to be as authentic and as consistent as possible. But I think with these kind of changes and trends and the fact we are looking for more authenticity, one piece of advice I would say is don't be afraid to kind of go outside the box of what you've been doing to date. Obviously know where your restrictions are, but just don't be afraid that you have to stick to those kind of traditional marketing or graphics that you've maybe used. Be open to go pushing it a little bit more creatively.
Any closing remarks, tips, advice, or anything that what's the one thing, the most practical thing that maybe a small business could do today to future-proof their business and get ahead of where all these changes are happening?
I think from my point of view, I guess one thing I would say, which pretty much summarizes a lot of the points I've made today, is keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. I feel like people sometimes do overthink the most simplest things, especially around business, because you want to get it right. But I can sort of reassure a lot of people that, especially on the website front, but I think as a whole across the business, don't overcomplicate it. Make it nice and simple to navigate in terms of you're looking through a site, but also don't be too confusing. Again, for social media, I guess, on your front, Gabby, don't confuse people. Don't go talking about different products, talk about your niche product, talk about the popular products, talk about the ones that are easy to sell, especially on that short form content. If you're looking for something that's a bit more detailed, if you're looking for higher end products, maybe long form content is maybe the better idea. But yes, in summary, keep it simple, keep your menu simple, keep your call to action simple. What the most important thing is the way you structure that content. Make sure that you have things like accordion boxes where you click and the content expands. It means on things like mobile. Mobile is the most important thing with web. 80% of it is used on mobile. So if your website design looks a lot better on desktop than mobile, definitely you want to make those changes and make it that it looks just as good and it's also as easy to navigate.
I would say maybe from a social media side, although I would say probably some of the points there I made would probably be advice I give. But the main thing I always say to any business is that consistency is the most important thing, because all the different platforms have different algorithms, but one thing that they all reward and depend on is consistency. So it's going to help you work with the algorithms, but it's also going to help you then build up that trust and authenticity with your audience. But if I was saying in terms of like any businesses that are selling either a product or a service, one in terms of social media, one piece of advice that I've given out a few times, because it's something I often see, is that in terms of, say, the caption that you use, if you are giving every piece of information about that product or service in that post, it's almost like, say, the kind of metaphor I use is, if imagine if you watched a movie trailer and they told you every bit or every good bit that's going to happen in that film, it gives you no reason to go see it. So if you are giving every piece of information about your product or service, that there might be, say, one thing that doesn't apply to that customer, they're less likely to click through to your website. Whereas if you give them enough of a taster, yes, they could go to your website, maybe find that product's not what they're looking for, but you could have 3 or 4 other products that is what they're looking for. So you're missing out on that kind of upselling opportunity if, what you're initially promoting wasn't what they're looking for.
Incredible, excellent. So yeah, loads to take away today. But I guess from my view, I'm thinking, all of us business owners or people who are running the business or leading a department, they need to be adaptable, because I've never seen changes so fast, driven by obviously technology, people's preferences, their behaviors. So businesses sadly have to run faster to keep up. I'm also hearing connection over content. So back to the trust and being able to communicate with a brand is very important, and understanding how our audiences interact. Again, the differences between a buyer on TikTok shop versus a buyer on Amazon, like they're 100 miles apart. So it's really interesting to see that. But definitely we're in an era of change, and there's lots of opportunities ahead. So again, thank you both for sharing your knowledge today. It was really insightful, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Thank you.